Happy May the 4th. Today I'm going to rank all of the theatrically released Star Wars movies from worst to best. So at number 12, which is my least favorite Star Wars movie, is the Clone Wars animated movie from 2008. It's a couple episodes of a TV show kind of thrown together. I was never a big fan of the animation style, and I never clicked with any of the characters. So it's, for me, the most kind of forgettable of the Star Wars movies and the one that kind of least deserves to be a movie. So number 11 is Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Like Clone Wars, part of the problem with this one is that it's not quite a movie. Phantom Menace lacks any kind of real structure. The characters are all really flat, and there's no real clear distinction of who the protagonist is or what even the story is necessarily about. It feels kind of just like things happening for 2 hours. A lot of what happens in Phantom Menace could have just been text crawl information in Episode 2. The movie just kind of feels like setting up a chessboard and putting all the pieces in place, but it takes 2 hours and then you don't get to play the game. Number 10 is Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. When you watch them in order, Attack of the Clones instantly feels a lot better than Phantom Menace because it feels like you're watching an actual movie. There's a structure, there's a plot, things are happening, and it feels like it has more of a direction and more of a voice than Phantom Menace does. But that doesn't necessarily make it good. I think it's just better than Phantom Menace. I like a lot of the Detective Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff. I think that's kind of fun, and Ewan McGregor is really fun in the Obi-Wan role, as I think a lot of people think. He's kind of wasted in Phantom Menace. He's just kind of in the background. Attack of the Clones allows him to kind of come to the forefront a lot more. I agree with a lot of the complaints that people have. The romance between Anakin and Padme is really, really weak, with a lot of really uncomfortable dialogue that both Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman struggle to say. You could tell they're always kind of, like, in the back of their minds, not quite sure of what they're saying, and it's all just really awkward and weird. The other thing that I don't really like about Attack of the Clones is that along with Revenge of the Sith, are the ones where they kind of go full digital with it. A lot of it is shot on green screens. The clones are entirely CGI. Of course, the droids are as well. And some of that starting in Phantom Menace, but Attack of the Clones is where kind of everything becomes CGI. And just stylistically, I don't like that as much as the style of some of the earlier Star Wars films. At number 9, we have Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So this one is quite a bit better than Episodes 1 and 2, but it suffers from mistakes made in Episodes 1 and 2. Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones take way too much time. There's a lot of padding. There's a lot of, I think, unnecessary scenes in those two movies. And so when you get to Revenge of the Sith, everything that needed to happen in this trilogy happens in this one movie. So it's a lot faster paced. It's a lot more exciting and action-packed. But the problem is that a lot of that it is really, really rushed. Nothing has the emotional impact it should, because, like, on paper, these are some of the biggest, most important things that have ever happened in a Star Wars movie. The Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting, Anakin putting on the Vader suit for the first time, getting the Vader name, Yoda fighting Sidious, the Order 66, the great, purge of the Jedi. These are all, like, huge, huge moments that really should make me feel something. They should make me feel a lot of things. When I watch it, it kind of just goes in one ear and out the other. And I feel like it should be a little more impactful than that. At number 8, we have X-Men Origins Han Solo. So I'm not a big prequel guy. And I don't just mean like Star Wars prequels. I mean prequels in general. I think they're all kind of boring. They make a lot of the same mistakes. And usually, pretty much in every case, the story starts when the story starts in the original. And so giving all that backstory usually feels unnecessary and boring and useless. And Solo falls into that, unfortunately. It also does a lot of really obnoxious prequel things. You know, like, how'd Han Solo get his gun? How'd Han Solo get this? How'd Han Solo get this? How'd Han Solo get his name? You know, and all that is really corny and really just why? Like, what? Just why? I think if they had just made a heist movie with this cast and this group of characters, I think they might have had something. I think there is fun to be had with Solo when it is this group going to get the coaxium and ultimately the Kessel Run, which is a prequel thing, but it's a little more fun than some of the other things they shove into the movie. But the whole thing gets really bogged down in trying to like explain and do all this kind of fan servicey kind of stuff, and it all just comes across really, really lame, which is a shame because it's a really, I think, fun group of actors, and I liked seeing them interact. I love Donald Glover as Lando. I think the Emilia Clarke character has a lot of potential and could have been really cool if she wasn't just kind of Leia before Leia. I think there's a lot of potential that kind of gets wasted in Solo. But it's a little more competent than I think the prequel trilogy. It's a little more fun. It's got a bit more energy. The acting's better, so that's why I rank it higher than the 3 prequels. It's conceptually worse than the 3 prequels. Those films have better ideas and better themes, but Solo is executed a little better, and I get a little more involved in it than I do with the prequel trilogy. At number 7, I have Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which apparently is the best Star Wars yet, according to Pete Hammond. Okay. I know a lot of people really dig Rogue One because it's like serious and dark, and that's all that matters to some people. And I don't know, it's fine. I certainly like quite a bit of it. I think Felicity Jones is a really great lead, but I think the writing really fails Rogue One, especially in terms of character. None of the arcs are set up properly enough. Because, like, they're there. Like, I get what each of the character arcs is. Like, Jen starts the movie as Episode 4 Han and ends it as Episode 6 Luke. That's kind of the whole idea. But the movie has a really rough first act. It has no idea how to set up any of its characters, or really even to set up, like, anything. So you're kind of just thrown in. And then the movie refuses to really let Jin be kind of mean-spirited and be nasty towards the beginning, which is the whole idea. She's supposed to be this kind of anti-hero, someone who doesn't take sides, someone who goes, you know, fuck the rebellion as well as the Empire. And, like, she's supposed to be a little more... She needs to be a little more out there and aggressive, and I feel like maybe in reshoots they toned her back to make her more likable, and maybe that's what happened. But you end up with a really kind of weak arc with a pretty underdeveloped character. I read the Jyn Erso novel that they published, Rebel Rising, that was kind of a prequel. And I think that book makes the movie a lot better, having all that backstory for Jyn, so you can understand where exactly she's coming from and what her headspace is. But you don't have any of that information with the movie. It's in a book over there. And I really like that book, but I think the movie needed a lot more work with its characters, or maybe less work if they took a lot of it out with reshoots. At number 5, I have Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I don't really know a lot of people that really liked Rise of Skywalker or loved it. It's pretty much every Star Wars film, I think, since ever has been kind of really divisive. No matter what opinion you have of it, it's a hot take, and someone's going to get mad that you like this one or don't like this one or what the fuck ever. But Rise of Skywalker, I never really saw a whole lot of positivity. I saw a lot of to what the fuck did you do? And I'm a little closer to the side of that. There's a lot that I really, really don't like. I think it's a really bad sequel to Force Awakens and Last Jedi. There is really nothing in it that I feel is a satisfying conclusion to the stories. Not just like what Ryan did. I don't agree with people that said that the problem is that JJ just came in and threw what Ryan did out. I think JJ is ignoring himself. There's a lot of stuff set up from Force Awakens that I don't think concludes properly or even in a way that's interesting. It feels like a movie that is scared of itself, of kind of just everything. It really has no good ideas. It's all just every time JJ and Chris Terrio had to make a decision, they made the safest choice possible, or the least not even safe, but like the least interesting. Like after The Last Jedi, it really did feel like anything was possible. Like, I really think Rian Johnson kind of kicked the story possibilities wide open, and there was a lot of really cool stuff Rise could have done, and they just fail at every single turn. The Palpatine stuff sucks. None of it's good. It's lazy and hokey, and I don't like it. I don't like Rey Palpatine. I don't really like any of the story choices that they made. I don't like that Finn and Poe really have nothing to do, and that they don't have arcs, and that JJ clearly didn't know what to do with them after Last Jedi. And I don't know. I don't see how Rey's story is improved by her being a Palpatine, because obviously the arc that Rey has to go through that is set up in Force Awakens is she needs to learn that her bloodline doesn't matter. That the family that abandoned her doesn't matter. What matters is the family that she found. Finn and Poe, the Resistance. That's the lesson she has to learn. And that's good. And it's there. Like, that is still the lesson she learns. But when you make it that she's a Palpatine, and you make it a really big deal that she's a Palpatine, you're contradicting your own theme. Because it does matter. It matters who her bloodline is. Because, like, that's JJ's kind of cheap explanation or answer to people that complained that Rey was too good at things. So his explanation is, well, she inherited it from Palpatine. And so, like, it does matter. Like, it matters who her family is. And then, even, like, it's in his own theme, he managed to screw it up again with that ending. Where, so the whole thing is about Rey finding a family, and then you end the film with her by herself in a desert. Like, how is that a good ending to her story? But, despite of, like, everything that I just complained about, because I agree, just on paper, I think this is a really weak script, and I think it's a really poorly put together movie. The reason this ranks higher than all of the other films, or the 5 prequels, is that a lot of the emotion still hit. Like, it's still connected in a lot of different places. And maybe that's just because I like Force Awakens and Last Jedi so much, and I'm so in love with these prequel trilogy characters that stuff still, like, there's a lot just goodwill. So, like, even though I think they're actively screwing up Rey's story, I'm still really, really emotionally invested in what happens to her. And so even as the movie is doing dumb things, I'm still really, really involved, and I still care, which is weird. And there are a lot of things in the movie that I really, really like. A lot of just individual stuff. I think the dialogue is really strong. I think there's a lot of just really, really fun, kind of snappy dialogue. J.J. Abrams is a really, I think, funny guy. And I think he writes kind of comedic banter really well. I think it's honestly probably the funniest Star Wars movie, at least in terms of intentional humor. I mean, every bit between Poe and 3PO I thought was really, really good. And I wish they had focused more on that, like the character dynamics, because when they do it, that's the best part of the movie. It's just when our characters are interacting and talking with each other. Like, that's when the movie is fun. That's when the movie has a lot of heart. But that is interrupted by a really dumb plot that insists on separating the characters at every turn. And no one wanted to see Rey by herself in this one. That was the point of the second one. And that's another thing that's wrong with Rise of Skywalker. It's repeating a lot of the beats Last Jedi did, because Last Jedi, one of the things that I thought was clever about that was Ryan took beats from Return of the Jedi. But he didn't just do the beats. There were subversions on them. There were, like, he would kind of turn things around on their head. And it was fun to see those moments in the second movie, because that opened up the door for a way more interesting third movie. And then JJ just kind of does those exact same Return of the Jedi moments. And so not only are you just repeating Return of the Jedi, you're repeating the last film, Last Jedi, but not as interesting. So it's just kind of like the same shit that we just saw. It all feels really, really repetitive. So I was trying to be positive. Fuck. I don't know. It's a weird movie for me because it does, like, I am kind of into it in a lot of different places. I love the scene between Kylo and Han. I love the scene between Rey and Luke. I think those are major, major highlights. But, like, I do recognize, like, how weak sauce the story is. So I don't know why, like, I'm still, like, more invested in it versus some of the other films, which I think have maybe better stories, but are executed maybe not as well. I don't know. It's weird. It's all weird. Who cares? At number 5, I have Return of the Jedi. So this is the first one that we're talking about that I think is actually a good movie, which is nice. It's a bit of a mixed bag for me. I really love everything with Luke, everything between Luke, Vader, and the Emperor on the Death Star, I think is really excellent. And some of my favorite stuff in Star Wars, some of that stuff is, I think, really, really incredible. I'm not as into the Han and Leia on Endor stuff. I don't hate any of it as much as some people do. I know some people really like, fuck Ewoks. Ewoks are fine, I guess. I don't really care one way or the other. I'm just not super invested in any of that. When you're really invested in one part of the story, which is the Luke stuff, and it's constantly cutting away to stuff that's just kind of okay, I don't know. I just find that a little frustrating in Return of the Jedi. But it's a fun movie. I like it a lot. Some of the stuff that's clearly there to sell toys is a little obnoxious. Slave Leia is just weird. But, I don't know, it's good. I like it. Hot take. I think Return of the Jedi is good. At 4, I have Episode 4, A New Hope. I don't know, like, it's weird talking about these ones, like the original films, because they've been talked about so much. I guess the prequels have too. But with the original, it's kind of hard to really say anything that hasn't been said a lot. Like, it's just, like, I don't know, it works. There's a simplicity to it that I think is really appealing. It's a really charming and fun adventure movie. At number 3, I have Episode 7, The Force Awakens, which I know some people, if anybody watches this, you're going to be kind of irritated that I have that above New Hope. The people that will kind of say that Force Awakens is just a remake of New Hope, which I don't agree with. The reason that Force Awakens ranks higher than New Hope is because, personally, I connect and relate to the new characters a lot more than the original characters, Rey especially. And that doesn't mean I don't like the original characters. I love Luke, I love Han, I love Leia, I love Lando. Rey is just a character that I really, really related to in a lot of ways. When Force Awakens came out, I was in college, and I think a lot of Rey's story is about someone who's at that kind of college age where you know you have some kind of worth, you know you have some kind of ability, but you don't really know where to put it. You have no real direction and no real sense of self, and you have to kind of figure all that out at a young age without help. And that's something you have to kind of come to terms with, is that no one's gonna come in and like map out your life for you or tell you who you are. That's all stuff you have to do on your own. And that was something I think really connected with in Rey's story, this whole thing with her abandonment issues and her trying to find her place in the world, but really having a hard time with trying to find it on her own. You know, she's constantly turning to other people, whether it's, it's Han in Force Awakens, and then in Last Jedi it's Luke, and then ultimately Kylo, and none of those work. She has to kind of find it for herself, and I just really, really connected with that story. And so that's why I think Force Awakens just makes me feel, I think that's why Force Awakens just connects more. So number 2 for me is The Empire Strikes Back. In a lot of ways, it's kind of the perfect sequel. It just feels like everything is kind of better. But the thing that's impressive about it is that it's really what sequels should look at, which is funny because we hear it all the time. Oh, this is The Empire Strikes Back of this. This is The Empire Strikes Back of that. But rarely do they really do what Empire Strikes Back does, which is that it makes the story smaller in a way, more personal. A lot of sequels will go higher with the stakes. So you, like in the Avengers movies, you go from an alien invasion to, Thanos wiping out half the universe. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bloated. But Empire is actually a smaller film than New Hope in certain ways. Because in New Hope, the stakes are this, giant ball has planet-killing lasers, and it's going to blow us all up. And in Empire, the stakes are Vader's going to kidnap Luke and take him to the Emperor. In theory, the stakes are lower, but they're actually a lot higher because they're more personal. They're more centered on the character dynamics and how everybody sort of interacts with each other. So at number 1, controversially, I'm sure, if anybody watches this, probably not, but my favorite Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi. I love Rian Johnson. I love his style. I love what he brings to movies. And I think for me, all the stuff that I love about Star Wars is in The Last Jedi, but multiplied and better. I think it's the best looking Star Wars movie. I think it has the best cinematography. Some of my favorite shots of the entire series are in Last Jedi. It's got my favorite action scenes are in this one. That fight with the Praetorian Guards, I think, is really, really incredible. And it has my favorite character work. Everything with Luke, I think, is really, really great and really interesting. The weird dynamics between Rey and Kylo Ren, I think, are really fascinating and really engrossing. And I just love that story a lot. I love how the movie challenges Finn and Poe. And I'm saying really a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not. But I think it's a movie that's willing to challenge its characters and challenge its world and its audience, while at the same time I still think it's really fun. It's the longest Star Wars movie, I think, but it moves really, really quickly, I think. I think it's got a great pace. I love the tone, I love the style, I love everything about it. I just think it's great. Hi, if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. If you want to be notified about future videos, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.